1943, the following directive was issued from party headquarters to all communists in the United States. It read, "When certain obstructionists become too irritating, label them after suitable build-ups as fascist or Nazi or anti-Semitic, and use the prestige of anti-fascist and tolerance organizations to discredit them. In the public mind, constantly associate those who oppose us with those names which already have a bad smell. The association will, after enough repetition, become fact in the public mind."
This is Grand Rapids, Michigan, a town becoming widely known to dentists and municipal authorities against tooth decay. The children in Grand Rapids have less tooth decay than they did 6 years ago, as much as 65% less. Grand Rapids' fight against tooth decay started in January 1945 when fluoride was added to the water supply.
I'm determined to ban assault weapons in this country. I did it once before and we will do it again.
The Constitution does not say that government shall decree the right to keep and bear arms. The Constitution says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
And then I had a conversation with the league, and the league said in this conversation, this is when I knew that my appeal was definitely not going to happen, was they said it's not possible for a vaccinated person, to contract or transmit COVID if they've been vaccinated. And I said, you got to be kidding me. Because I showed up and 5 people, non-players, 5 people fully vaxxed are out with COVID. So what are you talking about? And he said, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh boy.
And I said, no, I just think I'm a realist. I'm just looking at the facts here.
We just kind of thought, hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's a very professional law enforcement.
What do you think, Sophia? It's going to be pretty cool, huh?
The age of singularities is upon us, and it's likely that we are living in the last days of a golden age of the human mind, and the first days of the most exciting period of history yet. The Age of Singularities is a metaverse project my colleagues at Hanson Robotics and I are working on. Many of the details are still unfolding, but it's going to be awesome.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Protect voting rights. We'll pass election reform and make sure no one ever has the opportunity to steal an election again.
This. You are not alone. This is the resistance. You are not alone. This is the resistance. You are not alone. This is the resistance.
Now, you don't know it yet, but you are listening to History in the Making while you are listening to this show.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man. yet as mortal as his own.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Censored by the mainstream media, the destroyer of fake news, and your host of The Rundown Live, Kristan T. Harris.
Welcome to another edition of the Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. I'm your host, the man, the myth, the legend, Kristan T. Harris. As Barry Cooper has so politely called me, the king of cop busters there. Did never get busted in a lot of huge documentaries and videos on law enforcement corruption. He calls me the king of underground journalism. I was like, oh, bro, that's way too nice. Like, I just do what I'm supposed to do and what I'm here to do on this planet. And there's going to be long suffering when I get older. And I'm like, I don't have that 401k, but it's okay. What really matters is that we're getting this information out to you guys. Listen, punch the like button. I mean, just hit it hard, share, drop comments in the chat. Tag your friends. Get into the Rockfin, ROKFIN.com. We're live on KGRADB, the world's largest paranormal broadcasting network, which is in the evening. Most of that's all the ghost and fun stuff, which there might be some changes happening here at the Rundown Live. We're not quite sure, but they're all healthy and we're growing, I guess. We're growing as a show and more people are tuning in than ever before. We're also live on band.video, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher. We could go on and on, Facebook, Rumble, and find us. If you don't know where to find us, go to therundownlive.com. Therundownlive.com is our home. You can support us by donating or picking up some pretty sexy swag. We have the All-Seeing Eye UFO Pyramid t-shirts. Check those out. But that being said, today's show is going to be riveting. It's interesting, so don't go anywhere. We have a fantastic broadcast lined up for you guys today. Sitting next to me is my co-host, Don Vi Jr., the man, the myth, the legend from the Free Thought Project. And if you guys don't know about the Rundown Live, we are Milwaukee's leading independent news and talk radio. At one point, we had Alexa ratings that were beating the local CBS and Fox News affiliates, but censorship and cancel culture has come after free speech in the last 6 years. And like many platforms, like the Free Thought Project, like the anti-media, like Natural News, like the Rundown Live, like InfoWars, like Prison Planet, like Summit.news, like all these independent news sites that were funded by citizen journalism and information that was raw. We have been censored under the guise of the C word. And I want you guys to think about what the C word is. And the C word is probably not what you are thinking. But I wanted to dive into a bunch of things. And on the headlines, there are always the things that your mainstream media, your local AM 1130, 620 here in Wisconsin, or whoever it is probably not talking about. And the first thing is the ultra censorship of the recent interview of Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packer legend. The Packers are the state ordained religion here. He was on the Joe Rogan show. And on the Joe Rogan show, he said some controversial things. Things like this. I want you guys to listen very carefully. This is Aaron Rodgers talking on the Joe Rogan show, where we've actually had some people I've met and friends over the years and other things that have been on that program. It's a good show for a lot of people. And it's the number one listen and watch news show. And he's not even a journalist. He's not like an investigator. He just interviews lots of different type of people on all sides. And he does a pretty good job of towing the line like we have been doing here at the Rundown Live. So that being said, check this out. This is literally Aaron Rodgers clip on, Joe Rogan show. And we kind of, let's see what you guys think.
And then I had a conversation with the league, and the league said in this conversation, this one I knew that my appeal was definitely not going to happen, was they said it's not possible for a vaccinated person, to contract or transmit COVID if they've been vaccinated. And I said, You got to be kidding me. Because I showed up and 5 people, non-players, 5 people fully vaxxed are out with COVID. So what are you talking about? And he said, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Oh, boy.
And I said, no, I just think I'm a realist. I'm just looking at the facts here.
That was Aaron Rodgers on the Joe Rogan show talking about his choice in holistic medication and a drip process, which he didn't really go into detail. And it basically has diet versions of the strain, which they give to you over a long period of time. There's not ill side effects, which makes me wonder if the other elitists in the world, you know, the Henry Kissingers, the Rockefellers, the Bushes, the Clintons, the Rothschilds, and the Bidens of the world, the Trumpskins, all those different type of people who got all the money in the world, the Bilderbergers and the Bohemian Gromers and the Club of Romers, if they got that kind of treatment, because we are peasants and we're not allowed to get it. But what's the big thing here is somebody called Aaron Rodgers the C word. Like literally, he was correct. Like people will say, well, the science has changed. What does that now mean when we predict something or we tell you something that's common sense here in the show and the scientific consensus goes against it? And then they come out and say, oh, by the way, people like the Rundown Live and Jones and Rogan and other people out there are correct. Oh, but the science has changed. The science has changed. You don't understand. No, I understand. You know, somebody was reaching for your back wallet is what really was happening, you know, when you start to think about it, and they're not really interested entirely of, you know, in your health. And so the question I have to ask you is if you're a common individual, and I'm going to say that I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a medical expert. I really don't. But he said he did his own research and he came to his own conclusion. He had allergy issues to one of the ingredients in the vaccine, allegedly. And he decided to go a different route. And that route was pretty in-depth. He claimed that he got over 500 supporting documents for the treatment that he received. And then he came in the camp and 5 people in the front office were fully jabbed and acquired the whole coronavirus. And he went to the NFL health officials and said, listen, 5 people in the front office are fully vaccinated and they still got the COVID, and they called them the conspiracy theorist. Why is it that term is now being used? And it has always been used, but it's being weaponized to go after anyone that doesn't agree with a neo-fascist, multinational, corporatist healthcare system that really has no interest in keeping you alive. Look at Watch Farmageddon, where they legitimately own the food industry and they put ingredients in the food and the FDA approves it and it makes you sick. It makes you a lifelong consumer of big pharmaceutical agencies, right? And this is wild to me. And here it is. This obviously should be a viral video, is getting no attention from anyone in the media, anywhere on YouTube, anywhere on TikTok, not even on the tickety talk where, you know, people are saying, oh, I'm going to TikTok because conspiracy stuff. Yeah, if you want Bigfoot or you want bull BS, some little bit of bull with your morning, you know. And speaking of bulls, we're going to talk about the EU building the Tower of Babel, which is weird. It always seems like these multinational elitists who have a different set of rules and beliefs, they always want to try to make this biblical prophecy come true like it's a map. And I don't understand that either. But the term conspiracy theorist, we're going to dive into this, is a thought-terminating cliche. Whenever anyone calls you a conspiracy theorist, that means to anyone else that's listening nearby, nothing you say is relevant or factual, even though it might be. And then whoever's listening to you should not even consider what you say to be possibly or even remotely true, when in fact you might have the correct answer. And that prevents people from identifying their very own logical fallacies and their very own cognitive dissonance. And if you don't know what cognitive dissonance is, it's something that we talk about here a lot at the Rundown Live. It's when you have conflicting views in your life, right? You hold opposing viewpoints. That would be like my body, my choice, on certain things. And then let's say you're not my body, my choice on vaccination, or vice versa. Like it's like being consistent and rooting out the groupthink in the programming, the vision that tells you lies, TVs. We're going to dive into that today. MK Ultra studies and studies on television that says literally it puts you in a hypnotic state. It reaches out to your soul and pulls you into the TV, and then it subliminally programs you to have natural or unnatural triggers and causes you to react ways that aren't even your own thoughts or intended to be your own reactions. It causes you to react in a way that whoever wants you to react. So we got a lot to cover today, but we've been holding on to this amazing article by Don Vi Jr. from the Free Thought Project here. This is on conspiracies. And now Aaron Rodgers is now, as we saw, he has now earned his tinfoil hat. And we should make tinfoil crowns. Like we should have a contest to see who can make the best tinfoil hat out of the best color or size of tinfoil. But that's just it. The term conspiracy theorist is a thought-terming cliche, and it's being used, and it was used against Aaron Rodgers, and it was like it's even come down to where personal conversations are. You're a conspiracy theorist, and it's like, yeah, so, but like, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with asking questions, Don? So. Talk to us a little bit about this, because it's kind of scary. The United Nations, if you don't know, and you're listening to this program, has announced a war on conspiracies.
Essentially, going back to what you had mentioned previously, the term conspiracy theory, as some of us that have done the research know, it's been weaponized by the CIA essentially since the Kennedy assassination. This is confirmed through CIA Dispatch 1035-960. And, it specifically acknowledges, anyone who questions the official story of the Warren Commission, should just be derided as a conspiracy theorist and, use all these other, public shaming and thought terminating cliches to just sort of shut them down. But jumping into my article, the United Nations, specifically UNESCO, has declared war essentially on what they consider to be conspiracy theories. Let me go ahead and pull it up on my end.
Yeah, it's interesting. The UN declares war on conspiracies and conspiracy theories. Here are several that already came true. And I guess that's the question is it just that the science is changing? Or is it that we've been lied to? Is it like the science is changing is just a really big, easy and scientific way to say we lied or we were wrong? I mean, that's what I'm getting out of it.
Essentially, yeah. That's essentially the meat and potatoes of it is, just trying to cover their asses from things. But we can go ahead and dive into it. On August 1st, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, announced the beginning of a new campaign, #ThinkBeforeSharing, intended to help counter and stop the spread of what it claims is harmful disinformation and conspiracy theories online. They say the COVID-19 pandemic has sparked a worrying rise of disinformation and conspiracy theories. Conspiracy theories can be dangerous, and they often tend to discriminate against vulnerable groups, ignore scientific evidence, and polarize society with serious consequences, and this needs to stop. They went on to affirm a new campaign helps you learn how to identify, debunk, and react to and report on conspiracy theories to prevent their spread. Check out the infographics and social media pack below and help spread the word that facts matter. So essentially they created this massive infographics. There's a bunch of, I think it was like 6 of them, 6, 7, 8 of them, where they put down these, all these ideas and all this, essentially their narrative for, not challenging the status quo. Surely these would be noble sentiments if they were genuine, but as you continue to peruse through the infographics, it becomes quite apparent that the architects of this campaign only have one interest in mind: stifling public discourse and discrediting anyone who dares to challenge the status quo narrative. Indeed, upon browsing through the material provided, it quickly establishes an air that only the supposed authorities are to be trusted. They would never lie to you or purposefully peddle false information. No, only those with whom the establishment has deemed fair, just, and honest are to be trusted while seemingly encouraging critical thinking. They demand that you toss aside any critical thinking skills and blindly trust the figures whom you are told represent the best interests of everyone, whilst going on to paint anyone who disagrees and or promotes alleged conspiracy theories as a dangerous bigots and how one should react if you encounter one of these dangerous people and their harmful ideas. It's a carefully crafted package on how to identify wrongthink. Those of us that have read Orwell's 1984 know what that is.
What is wrongthink? Like, is that like whatever the conclusion you came to is incorrect because work then process? It's like algebra, bro.
Essentially, it's in 1984, wrongthink was a term used by the party. The party in Orwell's book was essentially the authoritarian ruling establishment. And wrongthink was a term used by the party to shut down anyone who criticized the narrative. That's essentially what it was, is if what you say goes against what the authority says, you are guilty of wrongthink and you're a thought criminal. So if the authority says the sky is purple, or if it's green or orange, it doesn't matter if you look up and say, well, no, I can see it with my eyes, it's blue. Well, no, the party says it's orange, so you're a thought criminal, you're guilty of wrongthink, and you need to go to the camp. So that's essentially what wrongthink is.
Okay, so what I was saying is, like with algebra, you have to show all the work that led up to the answer prior to Common Core anyways. So if you have all that work, and even though you came to the correct answer, they'll tell you that your processing in math is wrong. And this is mentally is wrong. And, this is the answer, even though you showed the work and you know what the right answer is. It's just wild to me. And it makes you wonder about things like Common Core curriculum, where they have those, like the answer doesn't have to be correct as long as you can show the work, how you got to your answer. And it could be all wrong. It's still, it's still correct in Common Core curriculum. That comes to this whole idea here where the wrong thing, if the government says it's correct, and even though the common sense says it's not, you're going to accept it. And then when they're ready to admit that you were right, they will then go ahead and let you be right once that you have shown that you're submissive to government.
Essentially, yeah. So as I said, it's a carefully crafted package on how to identify wrongthink, the latest salvo in the ongoing information war, paired with just enough of a limited hangout to appear good-natured to those who are unaware. Now, really quickly, for those who haven't seen some of our previous episodes or follow my work personally, either on Twitter or through my page Break the Matrix, if you don't know what a limited hangout is essentially a tactic used by clandestine professionals in covert operations and espionage and things, where they trickle out a little bit of the truth deliberately and then seed it and pad it with a bunch of disinformation to misdirect people. But they're so hooked on the little bit of truth you gave them, they're not focusing on the fact that they're still withholding the bigger picture. So essentially a distraction tactic by telling a little bit of the truth in order to distract people and misdirect them from the whole greater truth.
That being said, it went fast. We're coming into the bottom half of the first hour. We have commercial break coming right around the corner. Don't go anywhere. Punch the like button. Listen to the Rundown Live. Share this with your friends. We'll be back after these commercial messages from our sponsors. And if you're looking to be a sponsor, send us an email, showtips@therundown live. We are now offering advertising. We have an incredible audience. We reach thousands of people a day. We'll be back after these messages from the people that make the show go.
Looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Lots of young people play cornhole in the park. Seems like a good place to toss a bag around. But sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly. One never knows when the conspiracy theorist is about. Let's take the case of Ronald Farber. Ronald played cornhole all afternoon, and he didn't feel like throwing bags alone, so he decided to ask another boy. He'd done it 100 times before. He didn't think anything was unusual when the boy struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. What Ronald didn't know was that Ralph was sick. A sickness that was not visible like swine flu, but no less dangerous and contagious. A sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a conspiracy theorist, a paranoid person with a desperate need to feel they have a special knowledge that somehow sets them apart from the masses. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful. If they are too open-minded, if they question the official versions of the facts, and if they don't trust the United States government. One never knows when the conspiracy theorist is about. He may appear normal.
It's no secret that the independent media is held to a much higher standard than the lamestream media. When's the last time that you've seen the New York Times get a 30-day ban for lying about weapons of mass destruction? Or how about the Independent getting a 7-day suspension on YouTube for claiming that everyone that Kyle Rittenhouse shot was African American? The truth is you don't, because they get away with it. We don't. We're independents. And what separates us from the lamestream media is that we are 100% funded by you. That's right. We're your radio program. We're your station. And we're open to everyone. We're interested in hearing all the topics, all the sides, because that's kind of like how science works, right? You take in all the data, you decide what is correct and what is not, but it doesn't censor information, because then you can't make great decisions to feed your brain. We need your help here on therundownlive.com. Support us by heading over to our website and checking out our brand new swag. We have hot and sexy, all-seeing eye UFO pyramid boombox t-shirts. That's right, check them out. They're great, and there's no better way to support us than picking up some swag to spread the word about liberty and freedom and the ability to choose what is real and what is not for yourself, not some ministry of truth. Check us out, therundownlive.com. Pick up a t-shirt today. Again, that's therundownlive.com. Hit our store link and go shop, pick something up, support us.
Oil and slave labor. These two wonderful industries make modern life a breeze. And what this fine little filly doesn't realize is that her chic accessories and stunning appearance come from oil and slave labor.
Huh?
That's right, classy lassie. Everything from your thong to your nail polish, your smartphone to your eyelashes come from oil and slave labor. Your top from Uzbekistan. Shorts from China. Jewelry from Indonesia. And your iPhone from Taiwan.
Oh no, not my iPhone!
Steve Jobs may have been a genius, but he couldn't work like a 5-year-old Asian boy can. Even your bra and panties from Bangladesh. Whoa there! Looks like science can go no further. Except for these silicone beauties from DuPont.
Hey.
Oil and slave labor, making the Western world beautiful.
Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. I'm your host, Chris Don T. Harrison. We're back from commercial break. And I got a message from one of my leftist friends who listens to this broadcast. As I said, we reach a lot of conservative and left-leaning people. And they say, why do conservatives, and I'm not saying this is what we are, but why do conservatives think 1984 is a critique of the left? Why don't they know that George Orwell was a leftist? And that's an interesting comment. And when you think about it, left hasn't always meant what you probably think it means. And I won't go into the full scope, just point out that when Orwell was at peak popularity, the term left was used more nearly to its original meaning of non-coercive. Statism and authoritarianism, whether monarchy or socialism, were deemed right-wing except by Stalinists, who instead deemed the presence of any vestige of capitalism as a marker of the right wing. In the proper way of thinking about right and left, the basis is sovereignty. Right refers to those schemes in which the few rule over the many, while left refers to those more voluntaristic schemes in which people enjoying the equal status of citizen rather than subject govern themselves. The founding of the United States, after all, the basis for the term of a society left in the first place, with promotion of free enterprise, which is entirely voluntaristic and the mark of a liberal outlook. So Orwell were actually left socialists and quite opposed to the oppressive methods of right socialists, namely communist, fascist, and social democrats and democratic socialists. So yes, even you think of people like Bernie Sanders is right wing by the standards of Huxley and Orwell. Meanwhile, what most conservatives in the U.S. wish to conserve is the original left, our most liberal in the world heritage of Republican government and free enterprise and economics, which contains its own version of voluntary socialism in the form of not-for-profit charitable enterprise. As a young libertarian in the I greatly admired, the books of 1984 and a lot of these things, but people don't understand that the left and right paradigm has changed. And that, what the left is now is exactly what George Orwell in some shapes and forms was worried and warning about.
Yeah, and not only that, like I would just go further to just simplify the whole thing. It's not necessarily should even be utilized as a critique of left or right. It's just a critique of authoritarianism. That's at its basis. That's essentially what it is. It's a critique of authoritarianism. And I would say that if someone on one side or the other, left or right, liberal or conservative, has a problem with the 1984 accurately critiquing parts of society, then perhaps take a look at that society and wonder exactly why those comparisons are being made in the first place. And oftentimes it's not hyperbole. We have the mass surveillance. We could spend a whole episode going over how our society is very similar to the dystopia that was described by Orwell in his books, but we don't have time for that.
That's a whole nother episode. We should get an Orwell expert, or we should just literally dismantle the movie. Like they have a movie version or the book. It doesn't matter.
Movie was okay.
Movie was okay. Yeah, it wasn't up to what the book is. But we've been talking about how Aaron Rodgers of the holier than thou Green Bay Packers, because in Wisconsin the Green Bay Packers are the state ordained religion. And as you guys seen in the video of his interview, Joe Rogan, he was called by NFL health experts for pointing out that 5 people in the front office were fully jabbed and still got the C note. And by that, I don't mean the C word. I mean the corona, the crown virus. And the crown represents the sun, if you don't know that. And then, that's a little bit of that Luciferian occultism, which a lot of elitists believe, which are rumored to rule this world. Now, the idea here is that he was called a conspiracy theorist for just pointing this out by health experts in the NFL. And my question is how is a normal guy like Aaron Rodgers, and I don't believe he has a medical degree, be able to come to the correct conclusion? But these health experts who have lifelong amounts of courses, the education never stops. How did they get it wrong? How is it that the science has changed in somebody as basic as Aaron Rodgers, who did his own research, probably, and I'm guessing a lot of it, from the sounds of it, 500 pages, some elite group of researchers, definitely high-quality journalists, did a lot of research to build his repertoire for him to get that information out there. And, it's interesting that they were wrong. It's like, does that mean that they're just yes men? They don't really think for themselves. When they're looking at you at the hospital as an individual, are they going, what's best for you? Or are they thinking, what is my job based on what my boss tells me it is? And I have to do what they say, or I could lose my job. I have to follow protocol. And these protocols they use big words like mandatory. And they don't really maybe get left a lot of options to have civil conversations with their patients, because they have to go much like when you call into, a company you work for that has a remote HR. You get some people that barely can communicate with you, and they're reading out of a binder of what the responses are just because you need to feel like you communicated with a human being, when in reality they're just reading out of a playbook. That's almost what it seems like the medical industry went through with the World Economic Forum. And we didn't even mention that Fauci had retired, which is big news. But this is where we're going with this idea of conspiracy theories. The United Nations now, as what we're reading from Don Weiss Jr. on the Jr.'s article on the Free Thought Project, states that basically they want to battle conspiracies. Now, I'm going to give you a little background on this, because I had a conversation with somebody who's heavily involved in AI, who's a member. He's a member of Klaus Schwab's World Economic Forum. And when the first thing he asked me when he bumped into me, and I had dinner with this individual, is me, Sean Stone, and a couple other influencers and individuals at this time, right? Sean Stone is Oliver Stone's son, and we're sitting there, we're eating, and we were having a question, and I'm like, aren't you like, I'm not a big fan of globalization because it's a form of neo-fascism. And he looked up at me, and he's a very charismatic guy. He's done real well for himself. He's definitely a huge influencer in the futures market. And he looks at me, and we were talking designer babies, and he looks at me, he goes, you don't believe in the New World Order conspiracy, do you? Because we've been talking about that at the World Economic Forum. Why do you think they're looking to change the term from New World Order to liberal world order? It's because throughout the last 300 years, it's not a new conspiracy. It's a conspiracy that was formulated by one of the most diabolical individuals in history, which now a lot of professors are writing pieces on, saying he was a utopian, and that is of Adam Weishaupt. He's the one responsible for the French Revolution. They're also responsible for the League of the Just, which founded communism. And he's the one that said that no one should own private property. No, there should no longer be the family, because you don't have the right to own another person. You should share your wives and husbands with other individuals. Essentially, there should be no religion except for the one that the government provides, because they understand that people need religion, and that religion is going to be the new age astrotheological Luciferian religion provided by leaders of the world and other things. So when they brand it and when they educate the World Economic Forum people on the term New World Order, which obviously must be part of their entry-level World Economic Forum membership, they are told that they're actually doing good things. And I tell you what, these narcissistic, and I'm not calling the individual part of the World Economic Forum narcissistic, I'm calling Klaus Schwab and these elite leaders, they actually believe what they're doing is good, and they've been guided and they've been given wrong think. They're the ones that have the wrong think, and just because they don't agree with you or you don't agree with them doesn't mean that either of you are right. And for the idea that if people don't understand the roots of these terms, New World Order, if it's not a conspiracy and it's not real, why is it that George Bush has used it, Joe Biden recently used it, Bill Clinton has used the term? I mean, the term gets used all the way back. I found quotes going back in the 1930s and 1800s, a new world order. And what is this new world order? And it's always tied to big money and global capitalists, multinational corporations who want to siphon all the wealth and hold all the power at the end of the day. Because the one power we have as a nation, I want you to think about this, is that we have numbers. And then you wonder why they got a eugenics plan. They're scared that one day us useless worker bees, and worker bees is also a Masonic term and a term for a warlock, a magician, but us poor worker bees or ants, we might realize that we have numbers and we may rise up. Why do you think they're all getting bunkers underground? It's because they realize at some point there may be this opportunity to expel the world of millions, billion, hundreds of millions of people, who knows what, but they welcome the opportunity to cure and rid this planet of you guys, humans. That's not called being a murderer these days. That's called being, a good steward of this earth. And I want you guys to think about it. Instead of making better children for this planet and leaving this planet with better children, we're leaving a better planet for our kids, right? We're not teaching the children to plant trees and be better. What we're teaching them to do is not live as long, eat bugs, get your worm burger. That's in the news today. Do you want a worm burger? Sounds great. And you know what? These people who are educating these children, they're educated bugs are great to eat. They're not going to even have an idea of what's going on in the indoctrination. So for us to be labeled a conspiracy theorist, a thought-terminating cliche, shows immediately what the intentions of the individual are. I'm sure whoever Aaron Rodgers, NFL health official was that he communicated with, that called him a conspiracy theorist, had either a playbook that said, well, if this conspiracy comes up, just let them know it's a conspiracy and it's not true. and he was reading out of a dialogue prepared probably by the World Economic Forum, which is in bed, or not World Economic Forum, excuse me, the World Health Organization, who's in bed with the World Economic Forum, who's in bed with the Bilderbergers, who's in bed with the United Nations, in which we vote for no one to represent us as individuals, but yet they got people in a global government, which is basically multinational corporatists pushing an agenda, and they will conveniently give you a little star role at the Council of Foreign Relations, which is literally created by the offset of the Bavarian Illuminati, which Adam Weishaupt created. And that's not even a lie. That's been tracked back by Myron C. Fagan, a Jewish broadcaster in the 1960s, who started the Cinema Actors Guild, like the one that Hollywood still uses to this day. Look it up. Myron C. Fagan did a genealogy of where these people are, and a lot of them changed their last name. And you know what? They were all members, a lot of them were members of the Council on Foreign Relations when I first started out. And that's why they denied it existed, because their agenda lined up with communism. Illuminati was synonymous with communism in the 1700s. In fact, the League of the Just, which spawned from it, created the Communist Party. And when 1953, California had educational meetings because they were worried because this type of education was being injected. The Theosophical Society type ideologies were being injected. This communitarianism was being injected into the California education. And they said it's the same education that was inspired by Adam Weishaupt and the Bavarian lodges of Masonry and Illuminati. You can't make this up. And then we talk about it. It's government documents, and we're the crazy ones because we've done the research and we know this is what's happening. It's become to the point where I talk to people and I'm like, Mike, my former co-host here in Rundown Live. I love Don. I love Don a whole different way than I love Mike, different people. In fact, I like Don a little bit more, but don't tell Mike that. They literally are coming for your freedom of speech. This is everything that I thought was just BS. Like, not that I thought was BS. I thought was like, I don't know if this is what say, but it won't really happen. But here it is. We're in Wisconsin, and they're going after anyone and everyone that wants to make decisions for themselves. And the term conspiracy theorists, just look at some of the conspiracies that have come true. And Don, we can go down the list. Let's start with this. First of all, did you guys know that your TV programs you? That's why they call them programs. TV programs. Who are they programming? There's an MK Ultra article I could pull up right now. I have it on the screen that talks about this. And before we dive into that, what are some conspiracies, Don? Because I know in your article you talk about this a little bit that have become relevant and true.
Yeah. So first of all, let's pop this up right quick. First of all, what I did in my article was before I went on to label some of the more prolific conspiracies that have already come true, I also went about picking apart the UN's latest agenda to condemn them. And in doing so, I also list off a lot of things that have just in recent years have once been referred to as conspiracy theory and have come true. So as I say in my article, right at the start, meaning right at the beginning of the UN campaign, when you start going through the infographics, right at the start in the second infographic dedicated to how to identify conspiracy theories, we are told one way to determine if a conspiracy theory, if a story is a conspiracy theory or not, is to check the author. If they are connected to reputable media outlets or organizations, then they are to be trusted. But of course, as we know, a lot of these so-called reputable organizations like the New York Times, the Washington Post, they carried stories demonizing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal and peddling an unfounded conspiracy theory themselves, saying that the Hunter Biden laptop scandal was Russian disinformation. But it was 100% true. These same outlets also pushed the debunked Russiagate election meddling hoax, another unfounded, ridiculous conspiracy theory that eventually was proven to be completely false. So, both which were backed by the seemingly trustworthy officials in intelligence communities who were then proven to either be incredibly incompetent at their jobs or just outright liars. The campaign then goes on to say that trustworthy authors will use verifiable facts and evidence from academic or scientific research And yet, this flies in the face of corporate media practices during the COVID-19 pandemic when they refuse to even consider the research of some of the world's top virologists, epidemiologists, and other reputable medical professionals from esteemed institutions such as the thousands of doctors that have signed on to the Great Barrington Declaration, or people such as Dr. John P.A. Ioannidis, who is one of the most esteemed in his field, literally one of the most reputable and respected, I believe, epidemiologists in the entire world before COVID. And then after COVID, he became a pariah, because he critiqued the establishment's response to COVID-19, such as lockdowns, as well as the narrative of how deadly the virus was. And in hindsight, they've been proven completely right. There's literally hundreds of medical studies providing evidence that such interventionist policies provided little benefit while simultaneously carrying with them an incomprehensible amount of suffering and destruction. Of course, as those who watch the show know, I've talked about lockdowns quite often, and I actually right here, I sourced to my article on lockdowns covering so many of these societal factors, the explosion of mental health crises caused by lockdowns, the economic devastation, the fact that hundreds of millions of people worldwide are being pushed into poverty and starvation because of these lockdowns that destroyed economies, the spikes of domestic abuse, child abuse, suicides. I mean, the impact of these lockdowns, which we now know, and we knew from the beginning, but now without a doubt had no effect on saving people's lives. And as I've said in my previous articles, the people responsible for this need to be held accountable. They are guilty of mass state-sponsored murder. We might not be able to go as far as to call it genocide, but it's definitely some sort of democide that took place here. And it's absolutely insane. But I don't want to get off on a rant about that. Let's get back.
If I can stop you for a second, just to tie this into news that's happening right now. Did you watch the Mark Zuckerberg interview with Joe Rogan?
I did not.
Did you know that the FBI, one of the guys that was handling the whole Hunter Biden thing, I guess he got escorted out of the FBI. Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan's show, and he said literally they got a call from the FBI in premonition of the Hunter Biden laptop release. And that's why they went ahead and censored it as much as they did. They didn't completely pull it or ban it off their platform like Twitter. But that makes you wonder about the Washington Post and the New York Times. Who do they get their directive from? Is this the FBI running media outlets and basically telling them what to censor and what to not? And is this election rigging in a real scale versus the Russian collusion BS we saw in 2016? Because the FBI withheld information because they knew it would be damaging to Joe Biden, showing that they had favor for him as an organization, and went ahead and censored damaging information against them while he wasn't even in office. He was running for president, and that's information that we should be privy to make a good decision on our leadership. And because Zuckerberg went ahead and disclosed this on Joe Rogan, right?
Yeah.
It sent ripples, and now the FBI is under heavy scrutiny. The same guy who handled the Mar-a-Lago raid, I believe, was also involved in the whole Biden, Hunter Biden's laptop issue. And so for our listeners out there, they keep hearing this term, Hunter Biden's laptop. What for our listeners out there, Don, and I know you know this, I know this a little bit about this too. What was on Hunter Biden's laptop that would have really impacted the election? And not that we were supporting of one candidate or another in this situation, but censorship is not good.
Yeah. So essentially, a brief rundown is a lot of things that were okay. So first of all, what happened is that a laptop was found at one of those places where you hawk things. What's it?
Pawn shop? Are you looking?
Yes,
I thought it was a repair shop.
Pawn. Oh, yeah, it was a repair shop. Thank you. I thought it was a pawn shop. My bad. Yeah,
it was like the Geek Squad, or we'll call it
found at a repair shop in Delaware. And so they were going through it, and they realized that it belonged to Hunter Biden. And so a lot of the stuff that was found on this laptop is essentially information showing that he was, canoodling with prostitutes. There's other, videos and text messages and videos that he took himself smoking crack cocaine. There was information that suggests that he was compromised by an individual who was later arrested and then deported as a Chinese spy. There's a lot of wild stuff, on this laptop that should have definitely been public knowledge. He, in some text messages, he refers to his dad as Pedo Pete, and just
really?
Yeah, it's a whole lot of wild stuff. I mean,
that's wild. I didn't even know that. Like,
dig into the rabbit hole behind that, and that's just the Hunter Biden laptop. There's even less mention of Ashley Biden's diary, which was obtained by Project Veritas because it was found in a halfway house because she's also a drug addict, just like Hunter is.
That's unfortunate.
I know it is. But when Joe Biden's your dad,
there it is. He's groping on little children. They call him, even the kids call him Pedo Pete. And then
that's one of the creepy things about Ashley's diary is that I was actually reading about this just yesterday. A lot of this that I didn't know. Some of this information came out before the 2020 election. That in her diary, she talks about how she was always very hypersexualized, having sexual intercourse at a young age with friends, and even going on to mention having showers with her father, Joe Biden, the president, which even in her own diary, she says was probably inappropriate. So just imagine the effect on the election it would have had if our media was actually genuine and honest and said, yeah, we have this bombshell information. The president's son is smoking crack. He's messing around with prostitutes. He's been compromised by foreign espionage assets. And his daughter has accused him of inappropriate conduct, showering with her, and all this, just it's wild stuff that 100% would have had an impact on the election if the media and social media had actually, not even if the media had done their jobs and actually reported on it authentically, and social media hadn't gotten in the way of it and hadn't censored the story.
Yeah, that being said, I mean, that's just wild. Like we're already at the bottom of the commercial break here, and we haven't really dove into this whole subject, but we might have to transition a little bit. And for those out there listening, don't let somebody call you a conspiracy theorist. Confront them immediately and say, that's funny. The term conspiracy theorist is a thought-terminating cliche. It's an authoritarian term. It's a term that is a fascist term. It's a term to prevent you from having any kind of conversations like fact challenge, like climate denier, like COVID denier. When it's not that you're denying COVID or that you're an anti-vaxxer, it's you believe in a choice. And if you want to get some and you don't want to get some, that should be your choice. See, they have these thought-terminating cliches. Anytime they use the term anti, it also prevents you from acknowledging your own cognitive dissonance and logical fallacies. Why do you think the term anti-fa, if as in fascist, is there, or anti-Masonic, or it's weaponized by so many different groups. And what it really does is prevents you from having critical thought and stumping critical thinking. That being said, the United States president has basically declared war on Americans and said, I'm taking your assault rifles, and if you don't like it, well, we got F-15s to back it up. And if you think that's not a reason to go and buy a gun, I don't know what is. Literally the reason the right wing has said they need guns is for encroachment of government, and Joe Biden is giving them all the reasons to kick off any kind of violence they can use to come and put the boot on our neck. Get ready, as the left has deep-throated the boot for the second time in the last 2 years that I can think about. We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors. You're listening to therundownlive.com on KGRADB.com. Listen to us on KGRADB.com. Video is our catalog on band.video, and we're going to be doing some more adding to our new website we have going. We have so much happening by this fall. We're revamping the show. We're getting more pro. You're going to see a lot of changes here. So don't go anywhere. Support us. Donate on therundownlive.com. And if you want to advertise, show tips at the Rundown Live, we're going to run some because at least you'll reach a lot of people that will have not known about your product to begin with. We'll be back.
It lurks in the forest. A 45-foot-high stone owl ready to sacrifice an effigy. It's Moloch! 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 The great horned giant Babylonian pagan fire god mascot of the Bohemian Grove! Watch Moloch's annual ritualistic thrill show spectacular, The Creation of Hair! And
Businessmen, bankers, politicians, and presidents side by side, ridding themselves of dull care. For 2 weeks in July, the elite are out to cross-dress, drink wine, and touch penises. That's right, it's Man-O-Rama! This hooded rogue satanic summer camp with skulls is men only. Get down and dirty in the woods. Plus gourmet food.
A barbecue. A baby barbecue. They want to barbecue the babies.
But remember, weeding spiders come not here.
Mr. Gergen, say hi to Moloch for me, Canaanite deity, and I'll see you at Eyes Wide Shut, baby.
Located at 20601 Bohemian Avenue, just off the 12 freeway in Monte Rio. Exactly 75.2 miles north of San Francisco. Turn right on Fulton, left on Occidental, right at Green Hill, another left at Brighton, right at Bohemian Highway, and one more right at Bohemian Avenue, and you're there. Brought to you by MK Ultra. Be Control. Be Ultra.
Weaving spiders come not here? Yeah.
It's no secret that the independent media is held to a much higher standard than the lamestream media. When's the last time that you've seen the New York Times get a 30-day ban for lying about weapons of mass destruction? Or how about the Independent getting a 7-day suspension on YouTube for claiming that everyone that Kyle Rittenhouse shot was African American? The truth is you don't, because they get away with it. We don't. We're independents. And what separates us from the lamestream media is that we are 100% funded by you. That's right. We're your radio program. We're your station. And we're open to everyone. We're interested in hearing all the topics, all the sides, because that's kind of like how science works, right? You take in all the data, you decide what is correct and what is not, but it doesn't censor information, because then you can't make great decisions to feed your brain. We need your help here on therundownlive.com. Support us by heading over to our website and checking out our brand new swag. We have hot and sexy, all-seeing eye UFO pyramid boombox t-shirts. That's right, check them out. They're great, and there's no better way to support us than picking up some swag to spread the word about liberty and freedom and the ability to choose what is real and what is not for yourself, not some ministry of truth. Check us out, therundownlive.com. Pick up a t-shirt today. Again, that's therundownlive.com. Hit our store link and go shop, pick something up, support us.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a new world order, a new world order. A world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. I'm your host, Chris Don T. Harrison. We're back from commercial break, and this show has been flying, and we've been diving into a bunch of things, and we're going to continue on the war on the American people, which they've already, the United Nations is specifically giving this agenda to have a war on conspiracies. And now, you know what's weird is they dub that conservatives are the only ones that believe in conspiracies, when in reality, like, the left believes an equally amount of conspiracies, except that they just adopt them as fact, just like the right does. Like, for example, Russian collusion. Or you know, they still believe the narrative of, you know, the Steele dossier, and that there was no Clinton involvement in getting all that done, and that there's nothing behind the scenes. You know, they're also, you know, involved in other conspiracies, like they're supportive of the big pharma conspiracy around everything that COVID was, and how all the experts that were censored ended up being correct. They believed all the conspiracies that were being spewed at them because somebody conspired. Some medical experts got together in their little think tank room, and they're like looking at they're counting their gold coins, and they're like, we can have like 50 more of these gold coins in no time if we just convince everyone to get the jab. And you know what? To get the jab, everyone's got to wear a mask. Because if they don't wear the mask, there's no way you're going to get them to get the jab, and nobody's wearing the mask. So we need to reiterate this, and then we're going to fool them all because masks don't really work. We're going to tell them it works. In fact, we're going to fudge all the numbers where there's almost no flu. My friend works at my friend's daughter works at Children's Hospital, and she said for 2 years they had almost no flus, almost zero, but just COVID. And no ammonia, just COVID. And so the numbers, that makes you wonder how much fraud went along. Somebody conspired, they planned, and they gave directive to do this. And there's good doctors I've spoken to in Wisconsin that have run hospitals, and they talk to me, and they're amazed that I know so much about kind of the inner workings of the upper management, because I was in management once. I was a very successful 1%er, and I asked them, well, how much of this is just mandatory for you by your, the health council and, your direction for your job versus what's best for the, customer. And, they kind of smile and they're like, well, we got to do our job and maintain that. You got to do what the company wants. And you don't really have good competing companies. Back in the day, you had a lot more competition for healthcare, and it just seems like everything is government run now. You're incestuously evolved due to Obamacare. Obamacare has never had a favorable consensus amongst the public. In fact, it's one of those things that had a really low rating. In the first 3 months, they could only get 20,000 people to sign up because nobody wanted socialized healthcare, and that was the beginning. That was one of the first nails in the coffin I can remember, because everything started to change into this globalist, neo-fascist, multinational corporatist takeover of the world, something that George Soros describes as the open society, because he said by open society, he means global mafia state, which I recently provided that video for Don. Did you watch that video on Davos from George Soros where he says that?
Yeah, I did, but I found an issue with it is he's actually in that video contextually he says that Donald Trump believes in a global mafia state. So contextually, Soros isn't saying open society means global mafia state. At least that's what I heard when I watched the video. So this is an extra context there that sort of throws a wrench into that. But of course, as we know, Soros is still a gangster who has crippled multiple economies, overthrown multiple governments, along with pals like Kissinger. So even though the context of that particular clip, not necessarily, in that order, we're
talking about the same clip, right? The clip where he goes,
Yes.
Donald Trump is against an open society. And by open society, I mean global mafia state. That was his exact quote. That's the clip we're talking about. So, how is that out of context, I guess, is my question.
Well, go back and watch the clip. He's specifically, the entirety of it, he's specifically talking about he says that Donald Trump believes in a global mafia state and he is against an open society. So it's a little mixture of words around. But as we said, and as I said, obviously he's, still a globalist gangster who's crippled multiple governments and economies. But
well, who is he referring to? The global mafia state. See, this is all. I mean, it's essentially that's what it is. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's what he's saying, and it's. I guess maybe I misunderstood that because I was pretty sure that's spot on, and I've aired.
Because I had to go back and rewatch it multiple times, but
well, I know I've read the debates online, but the debates are all straw man arguments. They're never really that's the problem when you talk to a lot of people. They was anonyms where they start just ripping you and start calling you names, and they always switch the topic to a straw man argument. And when you look at these and the rules of debate, you'll notice that essentially it's just a really religious tribal thing where people are just trying to feel like their team is winning. In reality, we've talked about this. The government has a gazillion sock puppets, and who knows how many of them are in favor of the government. That's probably all of them, as we found out by Abby Martin, who did a Breaking the Set, video on it. How many of these shill accounts on Twitter and on Facebook are used specifically to propagandize you with government information to make you believe things that aren't true? And, we start diving into this and we start looking at these, and it's okay to have debates and conversations. And Don, I didn't want to, I'm not trying to throw you under the bus or anything like that. I just think that the context was, I've watched the video a ton of times too. And I guess maybe it's something where I interpreted it different, and it could be interpreted another way. So therefore, nobody's really wrong, and that's kind of the situation. Maybe we'll play the clip, but if you guys want to see the clip we're talking about, it's from 2017 in Davos. And this is why I love Don. He's honest about not agreeing. And I appreciate that, because people are out there that listen to the show, they're going to agree with Don. I guarantee you. And I'm okay with that. And there's some people out there that are going to agree with me, and some of the time you're going to agree with both of us. And we're going to be both saying not different things. Cognitive dissonance, right?
Right.
And that's the joke
Right.
there. So the video I was going to use as a preference to say, well, them saying things like this, why don't open? And David Rockefeller in his memoirs admitting that they're planning a new world order or globalization. He's saying it's not entirely true that that's what Bilderberg is doing. Like, that adds fuel to the fire. They give us like a gazillion reasons to believe there's conspiracies, but then they go ahead and they tell you, well, it's not what you think. We're going to tell you exactly what it is while doing exactly what the conspiracy theory is. And it's so bizarre. I mean, in their actions over words, because they play this whole magic with the game, right? Because wording is spelling, cast a spell, or grammar, the laws in which magic work by in the arcane sense. And they use that to their advantage to make you think that they're honest. I don't understand why people who believe New York Times are fake news and believe all these different outlets are fake news, they go back to them anyways. And don't get me wrong, I believe it's the journalist that matters, not the outlet, because, you know, the journalists are the ones that do the work. And there are good journalists in mainstream media. I've met many of them. And, just to be honest, like, when you see these journalists that are hacks and they just seem to be establishment types, and we know that they give us false information, we go back to these individuals or don't even check who the authors are half the time, and we regurgitate it. We're not making healthy, impactful decisions. We're being programmed that that's where you get your information, and it's the only place you're allowed to get your information. You can't go to the rundownlive.com or the freethoughtproject.com or all these other naturalnews.com or infowars.com. You can't go to leftist sites either, like Raw Story or, what's the big one out there that we always use on the show? The Gray Zone, You can't go to those websites because they're leftist websites. No, here's the information is free. It's for you to go digest and realize and look at the ingredients. That's what you're doing. You're looking at the ingredients of who's writing it, and you're going, this is GMO. It's got programming in it, and I am not going to accept this. I'll parking lot it because maybe it comes true, but I'm parking lot it. And then you eat something, you see it's organic, you have the raw information, and when you see it on the back of the box, it says, GMO free, essentially. And then you can go look at the other box and see how the ingredients compare and go, oh, there it is. That one thing that they said that was actually inaccurate, we can find out and disprove. And they're saying that that's not wrong because they're covering their tail or whatever it is. Like, it's weird. The FBI is involved with media, right? They're calling media stations, directing things. They're influencing their social engineering is the proper term, America, to be whatever this multinational corporatist operation wants you to be. There is no really United States government. We think there is, maybe on a local level if we want, but these guys are bought and paid for. And once they get into the game, they're all just pawns. And it's all about which way you can move and what you can do. And right now, the war on the chessboard, it's not world hunger. It's not inflation. It's not, cure for cancer or, stopping COVID or whatever it might be. It's the war on conspiracy theories. Why? Why are they so worried about conspiracy theorists? I want you to ask yourself that. And I know there's a lot of leftists out there that hate conspiracies, or they love some of their own JFK, Pearl Harbor, anti-war effort, the USS Liberty, and during the Egypt and Israel debacle, I think in the 60s, an American ship with American flags got fired upon. Popeye, who does the show on this broadcast called Down the Rabbit Hole, interviewed survivors, and he was like in tears when they were talking about them just loading it full of bullets and knowing it was an American ship and they didn't understand what was going on. It was weird. But nobody ever declared war on Israel because it was a purposeful event. Like, there's all these things in history that you can talk about. And I'm not saying our government is innocent. I'm saying that there's always a cover up, and that things like Operation Popeye, weather modification, information like Operation Northwoods, MK Ultra, these are accessible for us to see how our government is. People made it possible for, if you're willing to do the research, you can find the answer. But the problem is when you find the answer, they tell you you're wrong, even though it's their own documents.
Right. That's essentially, that's the core of the issue, is that they have this war against conspiracy theories because it's not actually conspiracy theories, they're conspiracy facts. And they expose the fact that these people at high levels of government and corporations are conspiring to screw everybody over and do a bunch of nefarious shit. At the very end of my article for the Free Thought Project, which I will put back up here on the screen, I actually go over a number of major conspiracies over the decades that have come true, and many that are still in play right now. The first one I mentioned was Mockingbird Media. As you just previously mentioned, it says, of course, having just mentioned propaganda operations, we would be remiss not to mention the first and foremost one of the most notable, far-reaching, and still active conspiracies of the last several decades, Operation Mockingbird. As detailed in part 1 of this series, titled How Truth Was Destroyed So Americans Would Crave Propaganda, myself and the Free Thought Project, we concisely outline in great detail the hard evidence provided, proving that the United States corporate media apparatus is subservient to the intelligence community, fully infiltrated by and under the influence of the Central Intelligence Agency. From the early days of ad manipulation in the 1920s and the father of propaganda himself, Dr. Edward Bernays, to the Nazi origins of CIA media influence operations imported to the U.S. via Project Paperclip, to the 1975 Church and Pike congressional committees and the explosive investigation by renowned journalist Carl Bernstein, and even a myriad of leaked and declassified documents through to the modern day, the empirical evidence establishes the irrefutable fact that the mainstream corporate media is by and large operates at the behest of state interests, exerting undue influence on the public as purveyors of propaganda. The next one I mentioned of true conspiracies is what's known as provocation operations, or unofficially false flags. This is another deep dive article that I did a while back. I say here, governments are by their very nature two things incontrovertibly: pathological liars and monopolies on violence. Nowhere is this better seen than with warfare, nations colluding and concocting untrue narratives to manufacture, consent, and justify military assaults on their adversaries is almost as old as time itself, though only recently has the concept of false flag attacks ushered from the realm of tinfoil hat lunacy to the accepting arms of the mainstream. For the longest times, if you claimed that a government staged an attack against itself and framed its rival in order to justify a military intervention abroad, you would be considered crazy. They would never do that, detractors exclaim. However, as pointed out in part 2 of this series, in the midst of the fervor of the U.S. NATO-backed warmongering in Eastern Europe, government officials, through their own accusations, outright confirmed that false flag attacks indeed do happen. But of course, us conspiracy theorists didn't need the pontifications of Jake Sullivan to know that. The historical proof of false flag operations has been out in the open for anyone willing to do the research for decades. As we elaborated in the article, whether it be the Nazis' Operation Himmler to justify the invasion of Poland at the beginning of World War II, which really quickly, a lot of folks might not even know about that. Do you happen to know what Operation Himmler is, Kriston? I can't really. I believe you've muted your mic, brother.
Sorry, I mean, listen, I think I've heard of Himmler, Operation Himmler, and I think it's trying to set up a precedent to go to war, right, or be involved in the war, which is interesting to me that back then Congress had to have a vote in order to go to war. So that was the use of the false flag, is if there was military financial interest that they could literally coat and create a false flag attack or a stir up interest to cause issues someplace to get us to go to wars to spend money for their lobbyist friends. And right. I don't know. So I don't want to go ahead. I take it all. I'll let you continue.
So essentially with the German the German government and the Third Reich, Operation Himmler was aptly named after Heinrich Himmler, who was essentially Hitler's second in command, and he was also the head of the Schutzstaffel, also the SS. For those who not that well versed in World War II history, I'm a big World War II history nerd because my grandfather fought in World War II. But it's named after Heinrich Himmler and the head of the SS, and essentially Operation Himmler was there were elements of the SS that went to Gleiwitz, Germany, and a number of other German outposts right on the border between Germany and Poland. And the SS then dressed up as Polish anti-fascist resistance fighters, and they attacked their own radio stations. So the biggest attack was in Gleiwitz, where the SS, dressed as Polish resistance, attacked a German radio station. They killed the crew, and they put out this radio broadcast that the Polish resistance, we've taken your radio station, blah, 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 blah. And then they had another SS unit in Poland where they captured a Polish farmer. Whether or not he was part of the Polish resistance, I don't remember, but they captured him. They murdered him. They put him in one of the Polish resistance uniforms. Then they took their uniforms off and put their SS uniforms back on, and they just hid the other uniforms that they wore. They tossed them in a ditch or behind a bush or whatever, but they hid those uniforms. And so they said, see, we killed one of the resistance fighters, and the other resistance fighters fled back into Poland. That was the excuse that Hitler used to justify the invasion of Poland. And it's not even taught in American history. You would think it would be, right? But a lot of in American history, they just teach you, oh yeah, Hitler just decided to invade Poland, and they blitzkrieged across the border, which was true. But the pretext for that is they had the SS conduct this really elaborate false flag operation where they posed as Polish anti-fascist resistance, and they attacked their own Nazi radio stations to justify this invasion. And it's a huge part of historical context that's left out in a lot of American classrooms.
That was awesome and insightful. That's why people listen to us. We always have this in-depth discussion, and we dive into some of these nitty-gritty facts. And I don't know what is it about white kids in World War II? Why do they? I'm just saying, why do they all love World War II? It's so bizarre. And I'm just joking. I'm joking. That was the question I saw. It's the question I saw in some online forum where you can ask people anything. And somebody asked, I think it was Cora or something, they asked the question. It was a minority asking the question why, white kids are obsessed with World War II history. And I'm like, I don't know. It's so weird. Well, for me, my family was German. That's why they left Germany, to avoid all that, And they came to the Midwest, Wisconsin. That's where we have these breweries, and we're the beer capital of the world. And we've offered so much joy at festivals with alcohol, and, probably a lot of rehab programs too. But, the history of this world and the conspiracies, that are out there's definitely multiple versions of history. If you read Russian history books or Chinese history books, and you should gather all the data and understand what they believe happened too, because your very own government obviously is considering half the nation as fascists, which is incredibly not true. The idea that the president of the United States can go to a Democratic conference, a rally, and say untrue things about people he disagrees with, and weaponizes terms like we learned earlier on in the Black and White TV Sucks video that they use, and they just repeat them, and people start to believe them. So it won't be long till you're having a conversation at work, and if it's a policy you don't agree with, you're a fascist. If it's something at the government that you don't agree with, you're a fascist. And it's funny how these individuals who are volunteeristic and trying to prevent government involvement, want to police their own people and everything else, all of a sudden are the police. And they're the ones all of a sudden becoming authoritarians, hungry with power, instead of being responsible and understanding not everyone thinks like you. Because what the consensus of the left is, and what the consensus of the right is, they both believe each other have wrong think. But they each have their own reasons for believing what they do. And unless you talk to them and understand why people you don't agree with you, you'll never find out where you're wrong as a person. You're going to only have indoctrinated methods supplied by your controllers, and nothing's ever going to change in this world for the better, because people are going to always draconianly try to infiltrate and destroy and siphon every last drip of blood out of this nation and out of this world. And I'm not saying America, has the greatest past, but this is the world we live in now. This is America now. And what is it that we're going to do to change America for the better and in a better way to leave a better world for our children if we're going to just sit here and take this and not say or do anything about it? And that is the fact that the FBI, not the FBI, but Joe Biden said that if the right needs and wants to take over the United States government in a war, they need F-15s, while saying that he's going to ban assault rifles because he's done it once before. Essentially, the reason why most people on the right, other than hunting, and even some people on the left, other than hunting, hold weapons is because they have the right to hold the government accountable and stop and prevent a government that is forcing their will upon the nation. And that is what we're seeing here through multinational corporatism. Got out politicians, left, right, backroom, secret society handshakes, all this kind of stuff that is really coming to fruition here. You're getting a media that at times is completely honest with you, and then they're dishonest. They're building a narcissistic trauma bond with you on what you can believe and what you can believe, establishing some kind of authority, which in right, they have no authority because we, the people, are that authority, right? You and I are the ones that elect these individuals, but not when they're bought and paid for by multinational corporatists that have no interest other than making a dollar at the end of the day. Do you think that they would have more cures in the medical industry if there was more financial incentive? Let's say if all the money was in the cure, we would have a lot more cures now instead of long-term treatments. It's the way it is. This is the way society is until you understand that the people who make it to the top are often having psychopathic traits, having narcissistic traits, having sociopathic traits. That's why they're good at what they do. That's why a doctor can operate on you. He's not worried about your health in that aspect. He's not scared of hurting you because he thinks he's the best. And that's what makes a lot of these people the best. And maybe a lot of things, some of them do good things. Not all narcissists are bad. Not all psychopaths murder people. You know what I'm saying? It's weird, but these are the people that are held in power. They found in some way solitude in being some form of anti-Christ or anti-Christian religion that destroys the family. And the family isn't just a Christian thing. It's like a majority of religions believe in family because they understand when you unite two couples for a lifetime, man, that's the ultimate goal. That's endgame. Maybe not for everyone anymore. Some people, it's okay. You want to choose a different lifestyle, they have that for you. And I don't think it should be illegal, but it shouldn't be illegal for me to disagree with you either.
Right. Yeah, very much so. And
sorry, I had a rant a little bit, but that's where we're at. That's
no, you're right. That's the thing though. You're absolutely right. And more people need to hear it. Bouncing back to our previous the previous talking point about the whole left and right and believing that they're right and believing that their opponents are guilty of wrongthink. You're also right in the fact that we need more public dialogue in this country. That's one of the biggest things. We have been conditioned by social engineers into this tribalist groupthink mindset where a public dialogue and just civil discourse is becoming less and less frequent. It's becoming an endangered ideology where you can just sit down and have a conversation with someone that believes completely different things that you do. Everyone has to be stuck in their own echo chambers, and that's not the way that a normal civil and polite society works. Civil and polite societies work when you have conversations with each other, even if you disagree with them, to find the common ground that you do agree on, because at the end of the day, as I've said multiple times, it's a 100% guarantee that you're going to find more that you agree with the people that you are supposedly opposed to politically than you ever will with the people at the top who ultimately they're all out for themselves. With that being said, we are heading to commercial break. Kristan?
Yeah, it's the way it is. The world's wild. I had to fix my camera. Obviously, we don't have like a gazillion employees. It's just me and Don here in the morning, but we work hard in research. And, we're a little UHF. I love that movie anyways, Ode to Weird Al, who seems to be like a pretty decent individual. That being said, we'll be back after these messages from our sponsors. You're listening to The Rundown Live on KGRADB.com band.video. Check us out, Rumble, Rockfin, iHeartRadio, Spotify, anywhere where podcasts are found. And if you can't find us there, therundownlive.com. And hey, by the way, send us a message and email. We'll read it on air at showtips@therundownlive.com.
This is Band Questions, take 1. Who?
What?
When?
Where?
Why? How?
Question.
Questions.
When I was growing up, I had so many questions.
I think that questions lead to more questions. Ignorance is bliss.
By middle school,
A child's curiosity is at an all-time high.
And that's because kids like to ask questions.
we need to help them tune out.
Truth doesn't matter.
Let's just ban questions altogether.
And encourage kids to do what they're told. To be dull and uninformed.
Listen to the voice of authority.
There are limits.
Dare to be boring.
You can't change the world. Let's ban questions.
Be dumb. Be you.
Ban questions.
Encourage kids to obey today. Take the pledge at thejoycamp.com. We're not asking, we're telling.
It's no secret that the independent media is held to a much higher standard than the lamestream media. When's the last time that you've seen the New York Times get a 30-day ban for lying about weapons of mass destruction? Or how about the Independent getting a 7-day suspension on YouTube for claiming that everyone that Kyle Rittenhouse shot was African American? The truth is you don't, because they get away with it. We don't. We're independents. And what separates us from the lamestream media is that we are 100% funded by you. That's right. We're your radio program. We're your station. And we're open to everyone. We're interested in hearing all the topics, all the sides, because that's kind of like how science works, right? You take in all the data, you decide what is correct and what is not, but it doesn't censor information, because then you can't make great decisions to feed your brain. We need your help here on therundownlive.com. Support us by heading over to our website and checking out our brand new swag. We have hot and sexy, all-seeing eye UFO pyramid boombox t-shirts. That's right, check them out. They're great, and there's no better way to support us than picking up some swag to spread the word about liberty and freedom and the ability to choose what is real and what is not for yourself, not some ministry of truth. Check us out, therundownlive.com. Pick up a t-shirt today. Again, that's therundownlive.com. Hit our store link and go shop, pick something up, support us.
Hey guys, I'm back with Is that The Bachelor? Oh, great show.
Oh, what's up, dude?
Oh, hey,
you were just in time.
What's up, buddy?
I've got something that'll make our favorite show even better.
Oh, I bet I know what he's talking about. Oh, yeah! That's what I'm talking about. That was what I was talking about.
Is it sativa?
It's just called Truth Bomb.
Truth Bomb Hybrid. You finna get woke.
Oh.
I don't really know what that means, but we're woke, so it sounds like
let's
it's
get even
just
more
fine.
woke.
Hey, you guys, there's a warning on here.
Charlie?
You shall. How is it?
Taxation is theft.
What did you say? You have to pay taxes. Otherwise, who would build the roads?
You're right.
Besides, Big Pharma is keeping us sick.
Wait. What?
What?
It's true.
Try this. Public schools are indoctrination camps.
Oh!
Whoa! This packs a mighty powerful punch.
Wow, that's the strongest little joint I've ever seen.
Let me put this tiny
And
thing
they are
down.
indoctrination camps.
They are.
Take another hit. Take another hit. I gotta see where this goes.
Okay, tiny joint. Do what you do. The fluoride in our water is calcifying our pineal gland.
Oh my god! That makes so much sense! That makes so much sense! That's our third eye! That's our third eye! Hold on. Wow. The Super Bowl halftime show is a mega occult ritual.
Oh shit, it is!
It's in plain sight. It's in plain sight.
Give me. It's my turn. Circumcision is genital mutilation!
It is.
Oh, they just cut your dick tip right off.
Just cut it right off.
And I'm Latino, I should still have mine.
Guys, I have an idea.
Oh, what's your idea?
KGRADB Banda Video, the Rundown Live, rundownlive.com out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, home to Milwaukee's #1 independent news and talk radio for 12 years. I don't know how much other independent news and talk radio there is because everything's dominated by a two-party system, both funded by the same multinational corporatists, but there is a revolt going on in the Republican Party that has, as I predicted as a former member, I said that they weren't going to maintain control because everything was moving towards libertarianism, which basically is the idea that anyone can share whatever belief they want as long as they don't infringe on other people's liberties and freedoms, and they don't force or propagandize them with that, including honoring contracts. And there's no force. It's a peaceful volunteer type society, kind of what the United States what was meant to be, where there can be different religions and it's okay not to agree with everyone. It doesn't mean that we have to force other people to be just like us. In fact, that's the destruction of the individual. And that's really what collectivism is. It's destruction of individualism. And they don't want individuals. They want cookie cut people that are good parts and good grease in the wheels of the system. And the system is the one that they build, not the system that you want to build.
Yeah, very, very much so.
So that being said, there's this article out there. That's the one verifying your claims on the Hunter Biden stuff, which we know is to be true. But of Biden saying, Biden tells brave right-wing Americans Second Amendment is no match for his F-15s. And what are they thinking? That's what led to my rant. There was like the whole last half hour of the show. I'm gonna apologize, but it had to be said. This is definitely terrifying. This is them doubling down on let's try to start a civil war because they'll really get all the people out there that are extremists identified, and we can lock them down. We got those FEMA camps that don't exist. Like that old movie. What was that called? A Distant Thunder, Image of the Beast there, and what was it? A Thief in the Night, where they got all these camps and they're putting people that don't agree with them in it. And in that movie, it was Christians. It was kind of one of those guilt trip, find Jesus moments. Like this could be you if you don't accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. And I'm not saying that's the right tactic. Show people through your good works that your way of life is the way to go. I don't care what religion you are. If you're a good, genuine, decent person and you want to, change someone, show them by your own good works. You shouldn't have to propagandize my child with bizarre videos and books in order to get them to believe and understand a certain way. That's propagandization. That is an assault on our intelligence as American people. And this is them saying, well, because you know what? We're going to have child sex change surgeries. We're going to have whatever the left says. Because if not, we got F-15s. So who's the fascist now? Huh? I don't know. I don't understand. I guess it wouldn't be fascism, right? It would be considered some form of authoritarianism, though.
Right. Well, I mean, technically speaking, yeah, it is. It is a form of fascism. I've postulated for quite a long time that America, in many senses, up to the top of the federal government, is a neo-fascist state because we see this authoritarian conglomeration between the government and corporations, and that is what fascism is. And Benito Mussolini, one of the fascist dictators from World War II. It's funny how we keep going back to World War II in this episode. And one of the fascist dictators from World War II, specifically said fascism ought to be more likely referred to as corporatism, which we often deride and lambast on this program because, as Mussolini said, fascism is more so a merger between corporate and state power. And, that's what we see here in the United States, the massive merger between corporate powers and government powers, enabling this massive despotism that really just, favors the wealthy and powerful and the oligarchs and the establishment, and really doesn't give a damn about the working class or the poor or the average Americans whose tax dollars they steal. And they got those 87,000 new IRS agents that are definitely going to be coming after the rich guys, not you, according to Mr. Joe Biden there. But when it comes to this whole
the picture you guys chose of Joe Biden, in no pictures have I seen does he look alive, but he looks like demonically possessed, like
animated, right? Doesn't he? Yeah,
he looks like Joe Biden went from this crippled person, like an Evil Dead, like, or not even Evil Dead, like whatever, all those what's the big zombie shoot, Resident Evil. He's like crumpled over, and all of a sudden he comes alive because he smells blood. I mean, what I'm saying, like everyone could take a picture, get a picture of them that doesn't really, fulfill them. But like those eyes, man,
I know
those pinhole dilated pupils or undilated pupils. I don't even know anymore.
They gotta have him hopped up on something to get him, motivated for those big speeches.
Yeah, maybe Hunter Biden sent him his latest video because that was also rumored to be happening by the UK Daily Mail. And he popped a few of the purple pills, and he's ready to go out there and give a speech, and he's gonna ram it down your throat. And he tells you that the brave right-wing Americans' Second Amendment is no match for his F-15, saying that they're coming for your guns, and if you want a civil war, you got one. And I don't know, this guy hasn't been with it. Like, do you think the left is just saying, "Oh, that's this crazy Uncle Joe there," or Pedo Pete or whatever Hunter called him, like, dude, who calls their dad there? He must really hate his dad. Now they're bonding because his daddy is getting him out of trouble.
I suppose. I know in Ashley's diary, Ashley Biden has a lot of disdain for her father, but not sure where Hunter stands on it. But yeah, when it comes to these most recent comments, because I believe he said this just last night at a rally about the whole F-15s and the Second Amendment thing, and it's so wild to me that I continue to point out how this two-party duopoly continues to proliferate this false left-right dichotomy. So he's lumping anybody who believes in a Second Amendment and the right of self-defense in with right-wingers. That's how he's categorizing them. When you have activists like BLM and the Not Effing Around movement and so many of these like hardcore leftist revolutionary groups that are very pro-gun, I mean, we see BLM marching through the streets with guns all the time. There's still chapters of
I'm okay with that, though.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna lie.
I think they have that right. Saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have that right. They're just not right wingers. But this rhetoric that Joe Biden is putting out there, anyone who believes in the Second Amendment is a right winger. So my point is continuing to proliferate this false left-right dichotomy to continue to stir up division among the American people. Obviously, there are plenty of people on the left who believe in the right to bear arms as well. And as I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it 1,000 times more. When the Second Amendment was written, it was specifically designed so that Americans would be sufficiently armed to protect themselves from the government should it become necessary, and anyone who says different is either ignorant or lying. Yes, you're supposed to be able to have weapons of war because the whole point of the damn thing is to be able to defend yourself if the government becomes too tyrannical. That was the point. Stop blank.
Well, I mean, Biden is like going, yeah, here's your reason for your guns. I'm giving it to you. You go get more guns.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to have F-15s and I'm not afraid to use them. Like that. Do you imagine if Donald Trump said this? He's like, right. We're going to use F-15s and Chopper Chaz. We got them on the way. So get out of the zone. Do you think that the news would have been like, yeah, that's not a big deal? Like literally
the president crucified him.
The president that said that he's going to unify the nation and heal them, and that there will never be another election fraud again, suggesting that his election was a fraud, and all these other weird things that he says going out there about, calling Kamala Harris president, and he doesn't know where he's at. He definitely felt the urge and the ability to declare war on half, maybe more than half of Americans. And so what this is going to do is if you're a classical liberal, if you're a standard liberal, you are now left with the choice of either you're going to be identified as a conservative because you want your guns, or you can be an ultra leftist, quack who wants to have 3-year-old sex changes and cut off wee-wees and sew up the JJs and stuff. I don't even know how that stuff works. But like that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're an adult, I don't care what you do, but don't come for the church. Not church, children. It's such a predatory class. Go after the church, actually. There's a lot of corruption in the religion, question things, I'm just saying. Like it's bizarre to me. And somebody in the chat tipped us and said, Joe Biden died 3 years ago. There are actors hired by the CIA to play Joe. come on. Like, check this out. Like, do you think he's a robot, dude? Like that
I
I'd
mean,
buy. I'd be like,
what
they
I
have
would
like
say,
AI, like robot. And it's Joe
what I would
Biden.
say to a claim like that is what I say to anyone who makes any sort of claim, because this is the standard that I hold myself to. Prove it. Provide us some sort of tangible evidence to where we can irrefutably say this is the fact. Otherwise, what have you got? Because as a journalist, that's all we can hold ourselves to, is if you can provide evidence to prove it. So
I'm not open to that. I'm like open to talking about it, but like,
absolutely.
I just don't think, like, listen, does the government have the ability to clone bodies? I believe it. They're cloning
Probably.
dogs, right?
Yeah,
They have their cats, dogs.
Dude, they've been cloning sheep since like 98 and even going back like to the 70s. I definitely believe they can clone people.
And the tech czars obviously believe you can download people's consciousness and then upload it into another meat suit per se in the near future as a form of immortality. I've had the conversations with transhumanism. Like we're like, I'm just saying, we're entertaining this because this, I want you guys to think about this, because as like there's digital deep fakes. Like if you saw a video, what if that Joe Biden video was a deep fake and that wasn't even him, and he wanted to be like, that wasn't me, it was a deep fake,
Right.
I mean,
and there is also, the body double thing to talk about, because of course we know political leaders throughout history have utilized body doubles. That's again, circling back to World War II in this episode, was one of the, big famous instances of World War II that people thought they had assassinated Hitler until Hitler was like, no, you killed one of my body doubles. I'm still alive and kicking. And we know that presidents from Donald Trump to, John F. Kennedy for a long, long time have used body doubles that look almost identical to them essentially as a form of protection. And that's not a conspiracy theory. That's just a known thing that, like, sometimes when they go out, the Secret Service will be escorting someone who looks like the president and is acting like the president, but they're not actually the president. And, it's essentially like, actors use stunt doubles. Like a great example, if you've seen Johnny Depp's stunt double, dude, man, looks exactly like him. They could be twin brothers. So, I mean, they can find people
mannerisms. With the AI technology with facial recognition, they'll be able to murder somebody else and swap out their body and call it Jeffrey Epstein and have a guy that looks just like him. Just saying, not
Right.
that that's really that accurate.
Then when you see
the rational person will be like, yeah, facial recognition is not that accurate and blah, blah, blah.
And then when you see the body of
some island, this is all BS, by the way. We're just throwing out stuff,
And
I'm
then
not
when
trying to say that's happening.
And then when you see the body of Epstein in the morgue, the earlobes don't match up to the actual Epstein.
I mean, we don't know that. We didn't take those pictures though, but it's suspicious. It makes you at least think about what we are given, what's, deep fakes and what's not. And it's just creepy. This whole thing with Joe Biden and him legitimately calling, libertarian conservatives, people who are very centric, you're extremists now, because the Republican Party has been taken over by libertarianism. And you know what that would make, like, I'm telling you, the more libertarian they lean and the more they're awake, the more changes that are happening within their own party. But what does that mean on the grand scale when Joe Biden, who's hurting in polls, is trying to rally his people and he's trying to stir up the nest here by using terms like domestic terrorist if you're a right-wing conservative? That means anything left of center, and the Libertarian Party is center, which is pushed off to the right. By center, they mean, a devout classical liberal. You buy majority of the indoctrination, but you rightfully question JFK and the Pearl Harbor incidents. And, there's, the media, and maybe you don't trust government really because, Congress has a 12% approval rating, but at the same time, you think that the government is mostly good and that you run the government, which, obviously, if we have the president who's only representing half the nation, not the whole nation, calling on war or trying to get extremists to act out to justify bringing down the boot, right? Because that's what's happening here. He like what's going to happen when there's a false flag and somebody decides to Manchurian candidate, the president, because these are his claims. This is what's being aggregated out there. And it turns out to be a liberal who just hunted and was, this was his turning point to believe the conspiracies were finally true and his mental stasis isn't there. They're going to come down on everyone. It doesn't matter. Something like this kind of provocation is trying to stir up a honeypot for extremists to go act. So if you actually believe you can change the world by doing something that dumb, you do have never really listened to our shows about being a peaceful individual, because there's one tool the government has in its toolbox. It's a hammer. And there's one thing you can do with the hammer. You can pound things with it. But when you act peacefully, when you act out with love, which is the real answer, when you learn to be friends with people you don't agree with and put aside your differences and still love that individual and want well for them, and being able to have a civil conversation, not shout them out and root out all their impurities like it's some kind of witch trial, then we'll know that this nation can change, because people out there need to stop being extremists. It doesn't do anything. You know what? We're like, there's people that argue that this is the government's first blow. No, they like this. Nobody's been killed yet by the Biden administration that we know of because they're right-wing extremists. You know, they, like maybe, who knows? You know, they have that kill list that Ben Swan, which had the #1 Fox News segment called Reality Check, who lost his job there for exposing the truth and questioning narratives. I don't know if he lost his job there, but he ended up not getting hired back on. You know, he's a great journalist, went to RT and many other places, has his own network, Sovereignty. He's been on the show. Like people like that, you know, he exposed that there was a kill list now. And Breitbart is funny, at the midnight of when the kill list was approved, at midnight, Breitbart suddenly died, just fell to his knees. Obama's Chicago rival, because guess who else was from Chicago?
Yeah, you know, there's certainly a lot of, you know, just
that's
a lot of wild
There's
stuff.
nothing there, though.
Yeah,
that's like there was no assassination. It just happened. You know, Breitbart just fell and died. But you know, that's this. But then they ask you why there's conspiracies. Why is there a conspiracy when those two things lined up like that? Just to like send a message to other people or anyone else that might, you know, expose corruption in this government. And we want to change things. And I want to talk about this because we've kind of touched lightly on it, right? And that's the zombie cell. Did you know that they're now calling the answer to longevity and the fountain of youth and staying young, you know, transhumanism, they want to live forever. This article came out today. All right.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know why that they would use, you know, white lettering on a white background. AP
I don't get it either.
AP's editor needs to check that.
Yeah, you know, Laura Unger, you go, girl. Zombie cells central. Zombie cells are central to the quest for active, vital old age. What are zombie cells? And why is it the cure? And why would they use that term? I guess more so my questioning is, why would they call anything that causes you to live forever a zombie cell? Unless they're like hoping that you're like still living after you've been killed, you know, per se. You're not the same person. You're coming back as a different beast. That is just weird. And then they have these zombie survival guides. But scientists are now wondering, can the zombie cell buildup be stopped? The ability to understand aging and the potential to intervene in the fundamental biology of aging is truly the greatest opportunity we have had, maybe in history, to transform human health. LaBrazier says, extending the span of healthy year impacts and quality of life, public health, and socioeconomics, and the whole shebang. With the number of people 65 or older expecting to double globally by 2050, cellular science is, or actually it says senescence is a very hot topic, says Vivian Perez Montes of the National Institute of Health. So basically what they're trying to do is prolong longevity. They want you to live organically to be about 150 years, 200 years old. But why do they call it the zombie gene? Like, it's like this programming. We talked about that. Zombie survival guide. Why does the government have one? Well, it's great in all cases, right? That's the situation. And it's wild to me. Wild. Geez, I'm having all sorts of camera issues today. But it's wild to me that all of this is going on. Like zombie cells. Why? I don't know. It's just weird to me.
I think the reason they might call them zombie cells, now I'm just spitballing here, is because there's some sort of cells that you know, they stay alive, I guess, during, you know, after the host has died or something. I'm not exactly sure the science behind it. I could only assume the reasoning behind referring to them as zombie cells is because, you know, they have the ability to maintain some sort of cellular life, after the host has passed on, much like a zombie would, I would assume.
Right. So like, it's just weird the things that are going on in the world. I can't believe we're here where the president is basically announcing civil war, and people are going to just the media is even reporting it. Really, I mean they are,
Right.
but they're not really talking about it. You would
Yeah.
think that this would be the number one conversation on every news radio program, whether it is
Well, I mean, they did
conservative or
this.
liberal.
Yeah, I mean, they did the same thing last year because, he makes these comments and they're sort of like in passing. That's why he's, essentially allowed to get away with it in ways, because he's like, oh, if you think you can beat the government, you're going to need AR-15. So he's not outright saying, oh, we're coming after you with AR-15s, but he's saying like, oh, and that's the crazy part about this whole narrative, like, oh, you're weapons of war, we have to get weapons of war off the street. But at the same time, he contradicts himself by saying, oh, your weapons of war can never beat the government, but if you think you can beat the government, overthrow the government, then you're going to need F-15s. Like, they're contradictory statements that can't exist in the same vein. And he did the same thing last year when he said that if you think that you can beat the government with AR-15s, then you're going to need some F-15s and nuclear bombs. He said that last year, essentially threatening to nuke gun owners. So it's absolutely insane. And what I would say to that, as we pointed out in our article, if you think that a government can't be defeated with anything but AR-15s and similar rifles, take a look at a little place called Vietnam. Take a look at a little place called Afghanistan. Take a look at a little place called Northern Ireland, where all they were armed with is AR and AK style rifles and improvised explosive devices. And the two most powerful governments in the world, the United States and the UK, respectively, in Vietnam and Afghanistan, and then the UK and Northern Ireland, got their asses beat. So I'm not advocating for violence because I'm a pacifist. I don't believe in using violence. I'm just saying, if you don't think that sufficient change can be made by a sufficiently armed public, then you're not a student of history.
Well, I got something for you. It was in World War II. That
Look at that again.
Yep, there it is today. Today's World War II day, I guess. There was the Japanese top military strategist for Japan was asked by the emperor, should we invade the United States?
Oh, I know this very well. And he said,
essentially, to paraphrase, he goes, yes, we can go and bomb. We got all these airplanes and all this other stuff over there. But every person in the United States, basically, there's hundreds of millions of guns, and that makes hundreds of millions of soldiers. And, they would literally have to go ahead.
Essentially what the general said when asked about the potentiality for an invasion of the mainland U.S. is there would be a rifle behind every tree and every blade of grass, essentially saying that if you put troops on mainland U.S., you're going to unify these people really quickly, and they're all going to grab their guns, and they're all going to be pointed at you.
Right. And so that's essentially so Joe Biden is saying, point them in my direction. Why? Like, what is, like, I don't understand the context of why he would want that, other than the fact that he's trying to win another election and he's going to run again, which is something I'm sure that the Dems are hoping doesn't happen. For a guy who got the most votes in presidential history, allegedly, he's probably one of the most unpopular presidents.
He is.
And how is it that Donald Trump probably had more popularity than this dude? It's just wild to me. And I don't know. I think that there's a large, believe it or not, there's still, even just in the left, there's a lot of people that believe that there was some kind of anomaly that he got elected. And, as we know, we know that we don't really select, or we don't really elect them a lot of times on these higher up eras. They're all selected per se. We learned that with the Cambridge Analytica and Brittany Kaiser Great Hack documentary. Go watch it. Great Hack. It's, I think, on Amazon or Netflix. I'll tell you all about it. And of course,
when it comes to, the left's belief of election meddling, as I've mentioned, multiple times on this program, there's concrete evidence that we know the Iowa caucus was, completely, mishandled and deliberately fraudulent, so that Bernie Sanders wouldn't receive the nomination. Instead, the Iowa caucus was taken by Pete Buttigieg, who then just stepped down and allowed Joe Biden to take the Democratic nomination. And Lee Camp, who used to host a show for RT America before the censors shut RT America down, did a fantastic investigation along with a number of other outlets, but I saw it first reported from Lee Camp, exposing everything going on at the Iowa caucus. So yeah, we 100% know that there was election meddling, at least to that degree.
I mean, yeah, you're definitely in the primaries. Those are private elections, and technically, I think that either party can say who they want wins, and they just got to try to find a way to cheat the people, which is kind of shows you what we talk about. There isn't much difference, guys. I want to say thank you for tuning in to the rundownlive.com. Support us. Go to the rundownlive.com. Send us an email, show tips at the rundownlive.com. We have a little contact button on the website, and pick up one of our new sexy shirts there, Rundown Live, All Seeing UFO Eye Poop Pyramid Boombox shirts. They're really cool. It says feed your brain on them, the Rundown Live. And I can tell you everyone looks good in one of these. $25, free shipping. And I know people say that's a lot of money. Well, I tell you what, free shipping isn't a lot of money. And 100% of that supports this broadcast. That isn't like, we're paying for car repairs or anything like that, because we could use car repairs. I'm sure everyone in the world can agree that that'd be nice. But, if you want to advertise on a program, send an email, showtips at therundownlive.com. We have some great opportunities here as we are going to be expanding and growing again. We grew and got, we get tens of thousands of views on band.video a week. We got something else that may happen here, and we want you guys to continue to support as we grow, and we need the advertisement as well, and we'll make you a great deal. Trust me, we'll be back tomorrow with another episode. See you guys then.